Hello and welcome. So today, I just wanted to talk about the Little Nightmares DLC, the Secrets of the Moor DLC. The reason why I'm making this video is because I recently played the Little Nightmares DLC for the first time, and I've been a fan of the series for quite some time, right? I feel like I had to play the game. I played Little Nightmares 1, played Little Nightmares 2. And I just never played this game. I previously made a tier list video, and I played the Little Nightmares DLC for that tier list. And so, the reason why I hadn't played it because I kept sort of writing it off, and I'm sure a lot of you do, and you haven't played it, and you've been writing it off because you just think it's it's not worth it. But I played it for the first time, and oh my god, it was so good. And I thought, you know what, I got to make a video on it. I want to talk about it. I want to talk about what I like about it, and maybe some things I disliked about it. And hopefully, by the end of it, I can convince you if you should play it or not. Maybe by the end of the video, you'll want to play it. I'm going to try not to talk about spoilers that much, but just know I am going to talk through like all of the chapters. But just, I'll try and be a little vague, right? So, if you do want to play this game yourself, then you won't really be spoiled that much. Okay, well, let's just get straight into it then. So the game actually starts you in the room where you first see the janitor, which I think is pretty cool. When you're playing as 6, this is something that I do quite like about this game, is you do backtrack through like most of the game. You do go through new environments in this game, which is good. But you also, there's a small part where you do go through a small section of like the prison section in the base game, right, of Little Nightmares 1. And I think this is cool. I think it's fine. And there isn't like that much reused places that you go to, which I think is good. It's good. We're also, if you haven't noticed already, we're not playing as 6 or Mono. We're playing as a new kid, and I'm pretty sure he's just called the Runaway Kid, which is kind of sad. He's never gotten a name, which is it's a bit sad for this guy. But I think it's a nice change of pace, you know, because we're not playing as a hungry, evil raincoat girl or a weird kid with a bag over his head. We're just playing as a normal kid this time around, and I think it's a nice change of pace. And I think something else that this DLC sort of acknowledges is that it wasn't just 6 who was trying to escape the moor, or whatever 6 was trying to do in the moor. Like, these kids weren't just, some of them looked like quite depressed and like they'd accepted their fate. But as you see in this DLC, there are kids that are trying to escape. You see about like 2 other kids trying to escape too, which is pretty cool. I think it's a cool detail to show that these kids are actually, they are trying to escape. So once you leave your bedroom, you see a girl with a flashlight. And so naturally you follow her. She's obviously trying to escape. Eventually you follow her down into a completely new area. And this is our first completely new area in the DLC. And it's called the Depths. And this is where, I think this is where the game peaks. I do think the game peaks early, and then it probably falls off slightly, but I don't think it falls off like much at all. Let's just talk through the depths, man, because I think this is the best part of the DLC, and I think it's so amazing. This is honestly what made me want to talk about this DLC. But don't get me wrong, the later sections are very good too. So progressing through the depths, which is obviously, it's looking a little flooded, which is unique. You can actually swim in the water, which there was no swimming in Little Nightmares 1, which is pretty impressive that they've literally programmed this whole like swimming mechanic just for this DLC. I think it's pretty cool. And a cool little detail I noticed about the main character's swimming animation is that it looks like he can't swim, which I just think it's a really cool detail. It looks like he can't swim, and it makes sense, he's a little kid, he probably can't swim. So going back to what we were doing, we're chasing the flashlight girl. Unfortunately, we climb through some boards, and we see a flashlight all on its own. And so, you can might be able to imply what's just happened to her. But now, on the bright side, we have a flashlight. So this flashlight is way better than the crappy little lighter 6 had. And you can actually like aim it and stuff. If you played Little Nightmares 2, you'd know how it works. Another cool little detail I just want to talk about is how the leeches are like way more of a threat in this DLC. And it's because, as I mentioned in the depths, everything's all wet and flooded, and so naturally the leeches can actually swim on the floor. The environment's more moist for them, so they can maneuver around a lot quicker. Okay, now let's get to the actual meat and potatoes of this DLC. The granny. She's one of the new monsters in this DLC, which doesn't appear in Little Nightmares 1, and I think the granny is amazing. Obviously she's a water monster because the depths is all flooded, so she swims under the water, and I just think she is terrifying. Basically the whole gameplay with her is she's basically the shoe monster from the base game. You've got to try and get to a piece of land. You've got to get out of the water as soon as possible, and it's so nerve-wracking because you can just see these ripples of water coming towards you, and she's clearly quicker than you, and it's just slow, it's just coming towards you, and the music literally rises and stuff, and you can hear like a heartbeat. The granny is an awesome monster. I think she's one of the best monsters in Little Nightmares. I think she's so amazing. It's so creepy how the music literally rises as she gets closer to you, and just the overall music in this section is just great. Like the ambient music, it's just, I don't know how to explain it, but it's very creepy, and I think it reflects the granny's character perfectly. It really sets the scene. The music's always been good in these games, so I don't think it's surprising that the music's good in the DLC, but I just wanted to mention it because I think it fits so well. Something that's unique about the granny too is how she's quite subtle. Like, she can sneak up on you a bit. Because she's in the water, if she just sits still, you don't know where she is. So there's a lot of times where you jump into the water and she just appears. Like, you just see like a splash of water, you're like, oh my god, she's right there. I literally just jumped into the water right next to her. That's just so creepy. There's also the fact that she's literally hidden for like 90% of the game. Like, you barely see what the granny actually looks like. You only understand that she is a granny until like the end of the game. Until like the end of the chapter, where you actually get a good look at her. She's just, the whole mystery behind her is just very well done. I think it makes her like a lot scarier. Another thing too, when I said about when you jump into the water, you don't know where she is. Sometimes you'll get to a body of water and you're just freaking out because you're like, is she in this body of water or not? And sometimes she's not there. Sometimes she's not always like chasing you in the water. Sometimes you'll get to an area and you'll think she'll chase you, but she doesn't. And I really like this. It's just like, you're just always on edge when you're in the water because you don't know if she's going to be in the same body of water as you or not. You don't know until you jump in. Something else I really like about the granny is she's not dumb. When you're standing on a piece of land, the granny actually tries to push you off whatever you're standing on. So if you're standing on a box, she will go under it and push you off of it. I think this is another really cool detail because you just don't really expect it at all. It just completely takes you off guard. Another thing about the granny too is that she's probably one of the more feral monsters out of the game series, if you know what I mean. I think this first chapter, or whatever you want to call it, like the first section of the game, I do think, as I said, I think it is the best part, and the rest of the game is more puzzle focused. But I don't think this is a bad thing at all. I really don't. So, after escaping the depths, unfortunately, our main character gets captured by the janitor, and we actually get to see Six, which is a really cool moment. This is another thing I really like with this DLC, is how it's interconnected with the story of the first game. These two stories are like happening at the same time, and so there are times in the story, in the game, where you can like see Six, you know, and I just think this is a really cool detail. It feels really cool just to think that, like, while you're going through these areas, you're always wondering, like, oh, I wonder what Six is doing right now. So we get wrapped up by the janitor, and we're probably being sent off to the chefs to be cooked. But we managed to escape and take a nasty fall. And this is where, as I was talking about before, how the game gets a lot more, it chills out a bit, and it's not as bombastic as that first chapter with the granny. It's a lot more chill and it's more puzzle focused, but I don't think this is a bad thing. I think it's a really good thing. I think because it's so puzzle focused, I think it makes the DLC more unique, you know? It makes it different from the base game. I don't know, I just think if they didn't make it more as puzzle focused as they did, I don't think it would have been as interesting. It probably would have just felt like the first game again, right? Not saying the base game didn't have any puzzles, but I just like what they did here. But the cool thing with this middle portion of the game, I don't even know what like each section of the game's called, but I'm just calling them chapters, right? There's 3 chapters, and this is chapter 2. The big part in this chapter is the gnomes, actually. The gnomes played a very small role in Little Nightmares 1. They were kind of just collectibles, right? You could find them and hug them. Damn, that gnome literally just teleported away. I can't even lie. Who taught that gnome flash step? The big thing with this chapter is you can use the gnomes to help you with puzzles. You will be using the gnomes to help you with puzzles a lot in this chapter. I think this is so awesome. It's so cool. It is so fun just helping out the gnomes. And the thing is, the puzzles here as well, they're fun. I really like all the puzzles like in this DLC in general. I'm personally, right, I'm not a big fan of puzzles in games. I can't lie. When I can't figure out a puzzle, if I can't figure out in like 3 minutes, I genuinely just get bored and look up the answer. I don't think I'm someone that enjoys puzzles in games really. But this game was different, honestly. None of the puzzles were like stupid hard and I couldn't figure them out. Like, I figured all puzzles in this game out on my own. I just think the puzzles are great. Like, even if you're not someone that enjoys puzzles, maybe when you heard me say the later portions of this game are more puzzle focused, you was like, you know, it kind of turns you off, right? That turned me off too. That's why I didn't play the game. But I played it, and like, these puzzles are fun. I enjoyed playing this game. The puzzles are I think they're fun, and they're not hard. They're not puzzles that, some of them, don't get me wrong, some of them might stump you a little. There was a couple that I think later on that I got stumped on. But going back to the gnomes are just, they're so heartwarming, man. Being able to actually interact with them, it's so much fun. Like, they even copy all your moves and stuff. It's so cute. The main way you interact with them is you pick them up and throw them so they can like climb, or they can get to a level that you can't reach or something like that. It's pretty simple, but they do some cool stuff with it. The music too here is quite unique. It's very light-hearted. As I said, the music in these games are always good. But don't get me wrong, this chapter does get a little scary at times. I'll talk about that in a minute. The entire goal of this chapter is to power this like chain conveyor belt thing, so you can rise up to the next level. And to do this, this furnace needs to be fueled. To do this, you need the gnomes for them to actually fuel the furnace, so you can actually use the conveyor belt thing. Furnace area, the furnace room, is sort of like the main hub area. But then, when you turn the furnace on, you can either go left or right, and you literally, I'm pretty sure, like, you just have this option of like, which way do you want to go? You can either choose to do the left way first or the right way first. The level design in Little Nightmares has always been like super linear, and it is still linear here, obviously, but I just think it's so cool that you just have this choice of going either left or right. But don't get me wrong, as I said earlier, this chapter isn't just fun and games, because Roger is back. You get some really cool sections with this guy. One where you're sneaking around like this little toy shop, and you have to distract him and stuff. There's one that's pretty scary, and I don't want to spoil it, where like you're literally in the pitch black, and I swear Roger just appears out of nowhere. It took me off guard like so bad on my first playthrough. Like, this DLC, you know, it was surprisingly, like, I wouldn't say it was like super scary or anything, but like, you know, like, I was a lot more tense than I would have expected, you know. I just think it's so great to see Roger back. I think everyone loves Roger. He works so well, and the gameplay sections with him are just, I think they're great. One issue I will say with this chapter is that the gnomes sometimes get lost. Like, they're supposed to follow you, but if you get too far away from you, they will just stand still. And it's a little irritating. Sometimes you're like, oh god, you'll be with 3 gnomes and you're like, one of them's missing, you have to go back far into the level to find this gnome that's just been left behind. It's kind of annoying. The AI for the gnomes can just be a little tedious at times, I think, but more of a nitpick. I also forgot to mention that to actually get the gnomes to work with you, you actually have to catch them and hug them first, because at first they think you're a threat, and so you get these pretty funny scenes where like in this coal pit where you're trying to catch this guy in the coal pit, and he's just not letting you get him, man. He's just, look at him go, man. I struggled so much to catch this guy.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
So after powering the conveyor belt, you can rise up it to the next level, and you get this really cool scene that I really want to talk about. Basically, there's a box that you need to pull out your way, and then a bunch of gnomes actually come over and see that you need help. But instead of actually needing to come over and hug them, they just come over and help you by themselves. You don't even help them, like they all just pick it up by themselves. This is such a little scene that might just be written off, but like I think it's such a nice scene. I love this scene so much. It really just feels like all your hard work's paid off, and all the gnomes you're a friend now. They see you as a friend, and they're willing to just help you out. And you get this amazing scene where you see them all huddled around a furnace, and if you pay attention to this scene, you might notice something, a very cool detail that actually foreshadows the ending of this DLC, which I will try not to spoil, don't worry. But if you know, you know. Now, it's time to move on to chapter 3. So chapter 3 is actually centered around the lady and her whole like mansion sort of bit, her whole like living quarters section that you see very briefly in Little Nightmares 1. I think this is a great setting, and I think the lady needed more screen time. She still like doesn't really get much screen time, but I think this DLC really adds more to her character, and I think that the lady is a really cool character. I think she's very interesting. And this DLC really brings her character up, I think. The music too. The lady's like playing this music box, and like, again, I keep talking about the music, but it sounds so good, man. It just sounds so tragic and sad. Like I can't help but feel bad for the lady, even though she's probably a bad guy. But the whole thing with this chapter, it kind of feels like Resident Evil, where like you get this whole mansion to yourself and you have to explore it and do puzzles. The goal is to gather all these statues and bring them to the like main hub area so you can open this door. And you do this by doing a couple like cool puzzles. All the puzzles, I think they're fun. As I said before, they're creative, and I just think they're cool. This area is quite eerie. It's very different from all the other areas in the game that we've seen. And it is quite eerie because you hear constant whispers. This chapter actually introduces a new enemy, which they're like these shadow kids, and I must say they're not super interesting, but I think they work and they add more variety to the gameplay. Basically how they work is they work very similar to the mannequins in Little Nightmares 2, where you have to flash them with your flashlight, but instead of them freezing, they just die. And so they're just like these fodder enemies that are constantly coming for you, and you need to defend yourself. I think they add like a uniqueness to the chapter, better gameplay, right? Improve the gameplay. Without them, I think the chapter would be a little less interesting. But they don't offer much. They're not super interesting and not super memorable, but I think they work pretty well. You know what, I'm going to put a spoiler warning here, so if you've watched so far and you think you're going to like this game, just click off the video now and do yourself a favour and play it for yourself. Yeah, so spoiler warning, click off the video now if you don't want to be spoiled. But now I'm just going to talk about like the ending and like the major spoiler at the end. So after you find the final statue and bring it to like the main hub area, and you go through and you unlock the final door, and you go through, you actually see the lady's actual face, what she looks like under the mask, and you can see she's, you know, she's not exactly pretty, let's just say. And it kind of explains like why all the mirrors are cracked in the house and why she wears a mask. And it brings up a lot of theories. Again, just makes the lady's character super interesting. Yeah, and you get this just really creepy scene where like the lady's obviously pissed that you saw her actual face, and she's literally stalking you across like these mannequins. It's pretty creepy how she's like a phantom just floating around you. There is actually no threat to your character here. You're actually pretty safe here. Like, the lady can't kill you here. You're fine. I think it could have done with, you know, like a stealth section chase or something. I think that would have been cool, because you're I can't lie, you can't be killed here. It's just a little creepy. But let's talk about the ending. And this ending, I think most of you already know what happens at the end. But this is why I put the spoiler warning, because if you don't know what happens, like, you gotta play it for yourself. And this ending is so heartbreaking. The lady turns our main character into a gnome, which shows that all the gnomes in the mall are actually, like, they were previously kids, and the lady most likely just turned them into gnomes. But not only did we get turned into a crummy little gnome, and we lost our clothes, we end up being the gnome that Six eats towards the end of the game, in the base game. Which is, it's so heartbreaking. It's such a heartbreaking reveal, man. It's just, we've spent this whole journey with this character, with this new character, and we've grown to like them. And then we just see this tragic fate for them. We don't even see the kid die, we just know what's gonna happen to him, and it's just so sad. And the music too, again, I'm always gonna go back to the music, but the music here is so, it hits, man. Even I knew what was gonna happen. I'd watched people play this game before, you know. I knew what the ending was gonna be. With the impact of the music and the whole journey I've been on, it still like really hit me deep. Like, it's still like just such a tragic end. I think it's such a great ending that's just so tragic. But that is pretty much the DLC. I hope if you watch this video, it maybe convinced you to play it for the first time, or maybe you've played it before and you want to go back. Maybe you haven't even played Little Nightmares before, and maybe this has just convinced you to check that game out, which you definitely should if you haven't even played Little Nightmares before. I think something that just was so good about this DLC was that I knew basically like the whole gist of it. Like, I knew what I was getting myself into, and I was still surprised. I knew about the granny, I knew about the whole gnome puzzle bit, I knew about the ending, but even with all this stuff spoiled, and like having watched people play this game probably multiple times, but even though I've done that, I played the game for myself, and I enjoyed it so much. I was so pleasantly surprised. This game's just it's so enjoyable. I really enjoyed it, and I really hope this video does convince you to go check it out, because I think it's genuinely a really good game, and I think it's such a good DLC. So yeah, if you enjoyed, check out my other videos, and yeah, see you in the next one.